Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, and welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. It is officially kickoff for college football. Last night we had a fun slate of games. Hopefully your bets were able to win. It's going to be a hard one to dictate. You know, college football, as chalky as I like to say it is, it's always fun. I mean, odds makers are pretty damn sharp, I would have to say. It doesn't matter what the sport is. It seems like they always know what they're doing. But we've got Friday games in case your Thursday games didn't go so well. So we're going to have a few games on the slate we're going to talk about. Myself, Tony Johnson, we're in studio. Tony, how are you feeling so far? Kickoff of the college football season is underway, and this is kind of like your soup du jour.
Yeah, I do feel like I've been through the ringer already a little bit.
I can just see in show prep you're stressing out a little bit.
Yeah,
not in a bad way. Just
no, it's not bad stress. No, I'm not complaining at all. It's definitely a first world issue if there ever was one. But no, I feel there's just a lot. I've made a lot more future bets than normal in the sense of just the dollar amounts are a little bit higher and. You know, I do a lot of college fantasy football. I think I've told you about that. So there's just a lot of things on the mind. You know, you have to really separate, I think, some of this other stuff, especially the future betting, from the day-to-day bets. The regular wagers. You don't really want to think about those future bets because certainly there's a bias there. There's something that's involved. You don't really want to. That's a separate issue. You want to attack the game at hand. Sometimes for me that causes a little bit higher stress.
Yeah, that is an interesting thought process because you're almost. You don't want to put your heart into play, even though, like you said, you've got a future wager that doesn't. I mean, spreads and wins can be totally different, things. One person or one thing you're rooting for can still, change over. That's an interesting. I don't think I've ever personally had a situation where future bet, dictated the way I bet a game, but the reason for that is I am not a huge futures guy in the sense of seasons like football. Short seasons where every game seems to matter. I've placed wagers really mostly for fun. I have a couple on the Mets and a couple other teams in the MLB. I think individually each game doesn't have a weighted effect in baseball like it does obviously in football.
Yeah, no, agreed. I agree. I agree with that. It is an interesting sport to do so. And in fact, there are times where I've talked about this with some people that they're hemming and hawing on like a season win total for college football. And I was like, the season is so short, only 12 games for the majority of the teams, that it might make more sense to just bet against that team or bet for that team if you over under just on a weekly basis almost. That might actually net you a little bit more. Now you have to deal with point spreads and things like that. So yes, it is a little bit hairy. But especially I think if you like a team that is going to be a dog for the majority of the season, or at least in a lot of their games, and you do like that team maybe with a season win over, you might be able to actually do better just betting that money line on a consistent basis. Just to be able, just to make more, and at least you can keep the money, rolling instead of having to give it up for 3 or 4 months.
And that's the thing. You give it up interest free basically for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
But the question is, like you said. Sometimes, with a team, I don't know, it's hard to pick one. The team you expect to do well, that even if they're not dogs in every game, but don't have outrageous money lines like we see with Clemson.
Yeah.
Betting individual games. I don't know necessarily if rolling is the right way to go about it, because you may be pretty confident in a game, but they may actually lose said game. But even just betting games you believe them to win individually, I'm trying to think of it like a team that generally does well, with the exception of, they may have 1 or 2 large-scale games that are basically 50-50. it's hard. The SEC is not an easy one, but maybe a situation like Oklahoma. You know, you have a lot of games where you expect them to win, you expect them to cover or at least handle their opponent easily. But, you know, is the money line even worth it in the risk in that spot?
Yeah, I mean, it's true, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can't really be betting these massive money lines just because there's just not enough value there. And then if you play the game where you start parlaying a bunch of these things together, you're just playing with fire.
Asking for trouble.
You are.
I mean, look at this. You got Texas A&M against Texas State. I mean, that money line was minus 23,000. I mean, what's the point?
No, not much point there. I mean, that's just not gonna do it. Not gonna get you anything. And again, as you said, you have to tie up so much money just to win so little that you can't be putting that money to use, that day for maybe another game that makes a lot more sense, for a total that might be really beneficial or something like that. So yeah, just tying up money like that, even just for a day.
And there was an offshore of UCF versus Florida A&M. The money line for Central Florida was minus 198,000.
Wow.
I mean, what's the point? Wow. I don't even have that kind of. What am I winning? 1 cent?
Yeah, it's. I think they just want to put a line out there to say they have a line out there, but certainly I don't think anyone is.
I mean, the crazy thing is there actually is a dog line plus 72,000. That's where it gets. That might be interesting.
720 to 1. Yeah, I mean, you need maybe an injury or two. And then the game to go a little awry, and all of a sudden you have a live ticket.
You got a live ticket that you can hedge, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably where you should be if you want to be betting on that game. But yes, for sure.
All right, well, let's look at tonight's slate. It's Friday. We've got 8 games worth of the card. Let's thank the sponsors, 12-Ounce Sports Radio. And let's see, we've got everything from Rice and Army all the way to Oklahoma State v. Oregon State. So there's a little bit of everything across the country. First off, what game excites you the most to watch as a fan?
Ooh, that is a good question. As a fan of the game, purely, I think the most intriguing game was Wisconsin-South Florida, just because we have two teams that are really kind of very different with how they go about things, especially this season where South Florida is going to be altering their offense, and they're going to more of a wide-open spread, very quick attack. So that should be really interesting. Charlie Strong has never really had an offense that did anything like that. They've always played relatively fast, even back in his Louisville days, but I think this team is going to look very, very different. And then, of course, the team they're facing, Wisconsin is pretty much the biggest plow horse that there is, still left in the college football landscape. They run the ball extremely well. They, what's coming and you can't really stop it. Their offensive line remains, ever since the, 1970s when Barry Alvarez took over there. It just remains a stout, very, very, very difficult line to get penetration against, and that's one of the reasons why these backs have so much success. Is that not only do they, see a lot of holes open, but they, the line moves so much. Watching a Wisconsin game, you'll see the line move, 1 or 2 yards, after when the back has the ball, by the time he gets to the line of scrimmage, and it's so hard to stop. So, to me, that's interesting. That's where South Florida really has had some issues over the last couple of years, and Strong has been there, is on their defensive line, and they haven't had a great linebacking core for the most part as well. So, it's going to be a fascinating game. There's a lot of people that are down on Wisconsin this year. I am very much included in that. And then South Florida is just going to be a fun team to watch, I think, as the year goes on.
It'll be an interesting team, especially, yeah. The question is like you said, Wisconsin, what's coming, but you still can't stop it. Yeah. Jonathan Taylor comes back, obviously. He is a potential Heisman candidate, obviously an outside shot, but it is an interesting one. A lot of people looking at that line think 10 points, South Florida, it might be prisoner of the moment bias. I mean, they started the season 7-0 and completely just fell apart. They're bringing back Blake Barnett, the guy who basically got them to 7-0, and also was the same guy who got them to 0-4 before being benched late part of the season. I think that's probably, on its face value, the game I'm most interested in seeing as well, just simply because I want to see South Florida get beat, although I do like them on that spread, currently sitting 10.5 to 11, depending on where you see or where you can bet. I guess now it's weird to think about that now because when you were talking about betting, we've done this show for almost over a year. It was almost like you were telling people, here, you can go to your offshore book, but now it's like, go to your local sports book. It
has really changed. The landscape has changed so much. You're right.
Just in a short period of time.
Yes.
So, I like that one. I like Utah State versus Wake Forest because anytime a G5 has a chance to play at P5 and give it a shot, and an actual legitimate shot, even if it is a lower tier in Wake Forest of the ACC, because the ACC's down. I mean, it could be argued as the worst, one of the worst of the Power Fives. The only reason it doesn't is because of Clemson, I would say. Mm-hmm. But anyways, Wake Forest, an interesting team. So we're going to start with the games. We are going to look at each individual game of the 8 that are available to bet, and we'll figure it out.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's start 6:00 Eastern time. I'm going to get my time zones right this year.
Oh, okay. So it'll be a welcome change.
Yeah, exactly. 6:00 Eastern time, Rice versus Army. Rice has just virtually been an irrelevant team for at least the better part of my life. Mm-hmm. So the current line right now is 21.5. Army's laying 3 touchdowns plus the hook. Everything was talked about. And most people who are casual bettors remember our Army gave Oklahoma a scare last year.
They did. I think they should have won that game. And they were phenomenal, really on both sides of the ball. We're always used to seeing that triple option just sort of pound you all the way down, but their defense was actually really good. Very opportunistic. They had a plus 17 turnover margin last year, which is fantastic for college football, only playing the 12 games. And I think they might have played 13 last year. But either way, yeah, Army was phenomenal, and they are returning more players than they usually do this year. So that offense is going to look very similar to what we saw in regards to the player-wise. And their schedule this year is just ridiculously soft. They only play 2 teams that had a winning record last year, and only 2 teams those 2 teams went to a bowl. And it's even this other. So the 2 winning records are Hawaii, which they travel to late in November, and they go to Michigan right after this Rice game. So the Michigan game is obviously very legit and very difficult. Hawaii is extremely winnable, and I think they're definitely a better team there, despite Hawaii's recent win over Arizona. It's such a soft schedule. So and then. On the flip side, Rice is in the opposite realm. They play one of the most difficult schedules a G5 team faces. So their first 4 games are at Army, home Wake Forest, home Texas, and I think neutral field against Baylor. Or neutral field Texas and then home Baylor, and it's just like brutal.
They also have UAB in that too,
UAB
and North Texas.
Yeah, exactly, and their conference is tough. Like this year, the Conference USA is I think really strong. So Southern Miss is really good too. They play up. There's a lot of good teams in Conference USA. That'll be the biggest surprise conference in my opinion this year is how good Conference USA is. But we can get to that later on. So Rice is screwed. I think pretty much in general. I don't think there's really any way around it. They're still developing second-year head coach with more of a run spread type of attack. They're using 2 or 3 running backs and trying to run the ball about 30 times a game at least, maybe even closer to 40 if they can. The problem is, you get so far behind in some of these games that, what are they going to do? And this is going to be one of those where they're going to be so far behind in the game. The line makes a lot of sense to me. I don't really see a whole lot of value here. Usually what I recommend for some of these games if we're trying to find something is
14-point teasers.
Nope, that is not. That's what you recommend. Usually where I'm at is I like taking unders anyway, as you know, but especially in Army games, people get a little bit sidetracked. I think sometimes when Army puts up 40 or 50 points against somebody, that all of a sudden these games can be pretty high scoring. That is not the case. Anytime a line gets inflated, you'll see me and hopefully everybody else out there pound that under because they play a lot of low scoring games overall. So
it did open up at 51.5, down consensus to 48.
Exactly, and that's where I was going with it. I think that at this point at 48, I don't really see a whole lot here. Again, I think Army has a chance to get close to that number themselves potentially.
Last meeting was 47-12.
Yeah,
between these two.
I don't have anything here. If I had to pick a side and to lean on anything, I probably take the over here at 48 just because it has moved down so much. But again, I don't really have any sort of feel. These are two teams that are in opposite directions, and it should be a pretty boring game, unfortunately. Although there's a lot of other, much higher quality games to watch.
Yeah, I will say, especially, like you think, if you think Army can definitely be strong, I don't dislike taking them down to 7.5. Part of a 14-point teaser.
14-teamer, yeah.
I'm also looking at 3-team 10 points too. They're only minus 120.
Ooh.
Especially the first week of the year. A lot of teams who were close. If you got teams who statistically match up pretty close, moving the line 10 points either way almost might be a benefit to you. But then again, I'm a fish.
Could be, yeah. I'm not into teasers for college football, just because there's so much that
You're
can
just
happen.
into the teasers that walk the strip.
Yeah, those are fine. I'm down with those. Yes.
Fair enough. All right, so let's move into that Wisconsin and South Florida game. We previewed it just a little bit here, but as one of the guests we had on our show, one of the hosts of Saturday Down South, Chris Marler, used to call this guy Jonathan Taylor Turnover because of his fumbling problems.
Fumble, yeah.
One of my favorite nicknames, although he probably doesn't know that's his nickname. Jonathan Taylor Turnover and his Wisconsin Badgers travel down to Tampa and face South Florida. Currently, the line is 11.5 to 10.5. Consensus we have is 11.5 right now. Total 58.5. Seems high for a Wisconsin game, in my opinion, but maybe that's more of a testament to what you talked about with South Florida's offense.
Yes, I'm agreed on all fronts. It does seem a little bit high, but I think being in South Florida and them, I think, having an improved team overall here from last year, or what it appears to be, is probably where this is at. And a really high-quality coach, too. I think that another important thing here is Wisconsin faces a lot of non-conference teams usually where, they're not up against a coach that has been there before, been in a big program and understands, has played in big games and coached in big games. And to me, this is a good spot for Charlie Strong in South Florida to really make a statement here. Again, this is a new year. How they fell apart really at the end of last season is certainly past history, and I do think this will be this will be a great game overall. And you mentioned Blake Barnett and on the offense. They're returning pretty much everybody, and there's a sophomore receiver named Randall St. Felix who looks every bit the part of a great player even at the next level. He's got the size, speed, and I would say raw ability to be a phenomenal player. The problem is he has played receiver only like 2 or 3 years in his life. He just played the tail end of his high school career. He started playing, and he just hasn't run a lot of routes. He doesn't really understand the position all that well, but he does look phenomenal. And he had some really, really nice catches last year too. We're looking to see if he can take the next step. I'm assuming he can. I'm hoping he can. And I think that will be a huge, huge benefit here. And again, playing with the speed that they intend to play with is going to be interesting for the receivers. They're going to run shorter routes. There's not going to be as much down the field just because if you want to run plays, every 12, 13 seconds, you just can't, be down the field all that much. So
right, you got to keep the offense kind of clumped, especially for the O-linemen.
Exactly.
It's only fair.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at there. I know that doesn't really help us a lot for this game. I'm 100% with you. Probably not going to bet it unless moves back the other direction. But I do like South Florida here getting 10.5 or so. The total just to me again we don't really know what we're going to see here. Also, want to bring up Alex Hornibrook transferred, the quarterback from Wisconsin last year.
State.
Yeah, so Jack Cohn is now the official new incumbent starter.
You were high on Jack Cohn last year.
I was, and I still I liked him a lot more than Hornibrook. That was the key to me, is that I thought he was a better option there. I'm not a huge fan of Cohn just as a quarterback in general, but. Yeah, I think he was a significant upgrade over Hornibrook. So, I think he's fine and he's a serviceable player, but they still haven't really done a whole lot on the outside edges. They're returning all the same receivers. Nobody really gets a lot of separation. It's the Taylor fumble show, and then pretty much everything
Taylor
else.
Turnover.
Yeah, so that's it. But it should be a good game. Should be an entertaining game.
I this feels like a teaser game because I feel like South Florida has a legitimate shot to win this game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Wisconsin could control the clock, control the ball, and just blow the doors off them. I think moving South Florida in the 14 points, taking them 25, if they do get beat by 3 touchdowns, you still get a cover.
Yeah.
Also, maybe moving Wisconsin just to winning the game or actually getting them at 3 points. I don't love it as much, but again, 14 points crossing the 0 is a dangerous game, friendo.
Yeah, that is I was just going to say that is a playing with fire game, especially with this offense that we don't know what we're going to see from South Florida.
Speaking of fire, that's what I like to use to incinerate my money sometimes. So
yeah, there you go.
sometimes I'd rather just light it on fire than give it to a book. But we talk about I think as much as we talk about South Florida's the offense, if their offense is clicking, then Wisconsin is going to have to change pace to keep up, and that relies more on Cone than turnover, than Taylor. I can't get that out of my mind. It is a hard one. I think if I go anywhere, I think I'm still putting together this big teaser. If I go anywhere with it, it's going to be South Florida plus 25.5. But straight on the spread, I still might take double digits with USF. At home, beginning of the season, again, 2 teams, not necessarily comparable in talent, but like you said, maybe Charlie Strong's big game experience might come into play here, because I actually believe this is a I hate the word hot seat, but this is a hot seat year for Charlie Strong. Especially, really? I believe that.
Wow.
I believe, especially with the expectation that happened, start that happened, and the finish that happened last year. This year may not get him fired, but this year he may need to have contend for an AAC title.
Wow, they won 10 games his first year at South Florida. That was only 2 years ago.
Expectations, my friend.
From South Florida, they have that high of expectations there. I mean,
I honestly believe that they focus too much on trying to keep up with the Jones that are about 75 miles northeast of them.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, I don't know anything about these schools, how they internally work or anything like that. I mean, that's your realm. But I mean, I just 17-8 as a head coach in 2 years at a program that is not a powerhouse by any means. I think
6-6 might get them fired.
Wow. Yeah, that would be. Well, I don't know. I mean, that would be surprising. It'd be surprising if they go 6-6. But yeah, it's be interesting. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. I actually had not ever thought of that until you just brought up. So that's interesting. So okay, we'll keep an eye on the Charlie Strong hot seat as the year goes on.
They do have an interesting schedule, though. I mean, you have Wisconsin out of the gate. If they can win that, I think that propels them huge, because they go to Georgia Tech. We talked about the offense in Georgia Tech. They have the AAC schedule. They get South Carolina State, which obviously is going to be a win. The AAC is not, hugely tough. Don't get me wrong, but they also miss most of the tough teams and get the actual tough teams at home in Cincinnati and Memphis, and then obviously, to finish the year at UCF. But Brigham Young's going to be an interesting one too. They got BYU coming in for an interesting matchup. I don't know. This win could propel them to a huge season, or, it might not. So, all right, let's move on to Michigan State versus Tulsa. I know this one you are really interested in as far as just listening to you during pregame show prep. This was one of them you were interested in the line movement, essentially from a betting perspective. Currently, it is at 23.5, which is a big number for Michigan State. Especially when you talk about, we just talked about Wisconsin and the type of football they play. Michigan State's pretty similar.
They are, and I think usually we see an elite defense from Wisconsin, and to me, I think we're going to see
Michigan State.
Yeah, no, I'm just making the comparison that you said to Wisconsin.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think we're going to see Wisconsin be non-elite on defense, and we're going to see Michigan State be almost even better than we've seen in years past. To me, this is one of the better defenses that D'Antonio has that we've seen from him over a decade plus now with Michigan State, and I'm interested in how the offense changes because they were a complete dumpster fire the last 5 or 6 games on offense. They were averaging like 180 yards a game, like total in those 6 games. It was totally brutal. If you were an under better, you were having a field day because these unders were getting to like the low 40s and they were still covering with ease. So yeah, it was really, really weird. They still have the same 2 quarterbacks there from last year, Lombardi and Lewerke. And the thought was from the spring game that Lombardi was going to be the now incumbent starter. But now, from what I understand after fall camp, Lewerke has taken the job back. So clearly they're not really enamored with either one of them. I think that's pretty obvious. And, we'll see what goes from there. They lost L.J. Scott to the NFL / then he retired, I believe. So he left early and then ended up retiring or something like that, from what I understand. But either way, they've lost a high-powered running back, and they just lost one of their best receivers for the year as well to an injury. So I think Cody White is the only one with really any experience that's left. The offense looks like another just train wreck. But, however, that being said, the defense is so good, and against a team like Tulsa, in a game like this, especially at home, I do think that they are going
room for error.
Yeah, there's just Tulsa. Tulsa's just not in the same caliber and level at all to a team like Michigan State, and I would be shocked if Tulsa can even really, get in the red zone, all that often in this game. So, again, I don't have a wager on this just because the line is so enormous in this game. Like as you said, you don't usually see lines like this. But again, if I had to bet on it, I would actually lay the points here and lay the 23.5 or wherever we stand right now. And
I think it almost seems like a fade the public bet because a lot of people do probably have thought processes of yes, Michigan State plays great defense and and all, but we saw the offense, we saw the what. We don't know. We kind of know what to expect out of both quarterbacks. Can they really even muster up 20 points? But I think you might be onto something with I think this might be a fade the public. I got to imagine most people are going to be on the under really in this spot. But I think Michigan State could probably put up pretty close. What do we have a total here? 47. I think they could probably be in the 35 to 38 range just by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's entirely possible. Tulsa has struggled on really both ends the last few years. It's an unfortunate circumstance because they've been a very high quality mid-major team for a while up until the last few years, and Philip Montgomery came in with a really, really high expectations offensively, a former Chip Kelly disciple, and really a very high quality offensive mind, and they just haven't been able to put it together. I think to at least what people expected from a team like that. So to go they were 3-9 last year, and I think they won 2 or 3 games the year before that. Coming off a 10-win season, 2016 when they won the Miami Bowl. I remember watching that game. It's just been a really rough run for them, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. So to me, Michigan State is the spot here. We'll see. I might actually end up betting this one. I got to take a little bit of a deeper look, but I don't see how Tulsa can stay in the game.
I would have to agree with you in that spot. It's probably going to be over early.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado State. They have a name for this game, and I can't remember what it is.
Oh, yeah, I think they do. You're right. I don't remember either.
It's not that important.
Yeah.
But we have Colorado right now as a 13.5, almost 2-touchdown favorite at this point against Colorado State. And from what I understand, this is the last time they're going to meet for a while?
Yes, they stopped the series. They play at an Invesco Field Sports Authority, or the hell they call it there, where the Broncos play. And,
whatever they call it, yeah.
And they are stopping the series. I think it was the decision of Colorado. They wanted to schedule something else at home. I think it was a revenue standpoint for them because they weren't getting as much TV revenue from this game as expected after the contract was up, and they didn't get a contract that was favorable. So I guess they're going another direction. I'm assuming playing a softie at home is probably the thought behind that. Plus, it's almost a guaranteed type.
Because this used to be this is their opener every year.
Yes,
like, right?
Yes, yeah. It has been for many years now, I think. But yeah.
One guy. Coming back, I guess, because he obviously played in the. I believe he got hurt.
Yeah.
Chenault, how do I say his name? Laviska Chenault.
Yeah. Most important player in college football, in my opinion, for their team, for the team, almost.
Almost more important than Rondale Moore for Purdue?
Yes.
Okay.
But Rondale's a great answer, though, to who's the most important. Yes. he might be number 2. Yes. I think Chenault is the best receiver in college football.
But you could definitely see the roller coaster or the bell curve effect when he went out.
Oh, my goodness. What, 6-0 to 6-6, right? I think they lost. They won their first 6, and they lost their next 6.
5-0 to 5-7.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
But
5-7, yeah.
the point still stands at that point. The other question really is Colorado really expected to be anything in the Pac-12 this year?
No. Not this year, although people are very high on Mel Tucker, who's coming over from Georgia, defensive coordinator Georgia. He was also a coordinator for the Bears. He's a very well-known name on the defensive side, and they're very high on him, but he's never been out west. It's one of those things, can he recruit out west and in California and things like that? He's never really done this before, but people, he's a very bright guy, and so, we'll see if he can get it all together. But there's been very few people that have been successful in Colorado. It's one of those spots that there's been a lot of struggling the last 15 to 20 years. I don't know what necessarily the reasoning is.
They kind of have, not necessarily a pipeline, because obviously they don't have a Florida, Ohio, California, but there is a ground right there. I mean, you have New Mexico, parts of western Texas, Colorado, northern Arizona. You have Wyoming, for what it's worth. Montana football. You could probably even extend your arm into the Dakotas. There's a bed there that you would think. I don't know. I mean, again, kids can go wherever they want, but you would think that with the opportunity to play, I mean, it's a spot. You're playing P5 football.
Yeah.
So it is weird. They do also have one of the toughest schedules, even though the Pac-12 is not considered, one of the stronger conferences in the P5. If you had to go and look at their schedule up and down, they play Nebraska, who a lot of people are high on. They play Arizona State, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and Utah all on the road. That is not good for them.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, the Pac-12 is definitely improved this year, so it'll be interesting. But yeah, no, I agree. Colorado does not have it easy, and this game, while it's certainly not an easy type of thing, but I think this is probably one of, if not their softest game besides the FCS opponent.
Yeah, I mean, last year they beat them 45-13. Yeah. Montez threw for 338 and 4 touchdowns, and Chenault had 211 and a touchdown in that.
There you go.
It almost seems like with everyone coming back, it's going to be more of the same.
Yeah, I would say for sure. They lose McMillian, the running back, but again, I think people aren't all that concerned about that. There's another young up-and-comer named Alex Fontenot who has apparently stepped in and been great all the way from the spring into the fall camp, so I don't think they're very worried about production at all. Running back, obviously Montez has been the starter, 3 years now almost, so he's clearly established. The offense is going to remain roughly the same from what I understand. It is still a pro-style type of attack from Mike McIntyre days. And, so it should be relatively consistent in that regard. And then we have Colorado State, who really fell on their face last year. This is a team that had this great offense the 2 previous years under Mike Bobo, and who also coached with Mel Tucker, I believe. I want to say. I don't know. It was at one of those SEC schools, from what I understand. And Bobo also coached at Alabama too for a little bit. He was a coordinator there for a year or two. But yeah, I mean, he's a really good mind himself. But the problem is they've had some injury issues for now the last 2 years, and their defense has just not improved. So to me, the line makes a lot of sense where it is. I don't see Colorado State having a ton of chance in this game. I was surprised that Colorado pulled away as much as they did last year. That was a surprising score. But I don't think I had a wager on the game, but it was still a shock. I don't know. This is out of all the 8 games, is the game I'm the least confident in. Despite the fact that I love Chenault, I don't really have a selection at all.
You got to imagine Colorado's going to win this game, though, barring catastrophic things happening.
I would agree. I do think they are definitely the better team on both sides of the ball. Yes, I do.
Well, 13.5. Take it down 14 points.
There's the teaser game is back. There it is. Perfect. I knew I would lead you into something there. So
again, I'm not a sharp enough of a handicap spur that the books are better than me. But so I got to move a little bit into my favor, even if it means I pay them a little more.
This might be a good spot for one of those big teasers, though.
You got to find four. You got to find 4 picks, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the issue, I guess. So it all sounds so good until you have to find more games like this. Yeah, if you had a lot of games like this, that would be kind of nice.
Let me ask you a question. When you wake up Saturday mornings, what are you more amped to see? The lines in front of your face, or the text message from me that has the 14-point teaser of the day?
Well, I mean, there's a nice safe answer, and then there's another answer. I am not amped to see your teaser per se. What I'm more interested in is if your teaser coincides with anything that I have and or against, because there are times where I've had like some sort of, I think it was like an underdog or whatever, and you have the favorite all the way down. I might even have that underdog as like a money line, and so I have to actually outright root against you for your silly teaser because I want this underdog to come home. And then there have been multiple occasions where that underdog has gotten blown out of the game, and I almost blame you for it internally.
There's no reason for me to even move the line.
Yes. So, I mean, multiple times it happened last year where I felt good about this team, underdog or whatever, and then you brought the favorite down, and the favorite ended up winning by 20-something, and I was like, what the hell? I was upset. But
God damn this guy.
So, no, but your teasers are interesting, I will say. I don't know. How have you done with it? Just out of curiosity. Are they a winning wager for you, or how was it better, about even? Or
I find if I could stop doing them in the NFL, I would be a winning player.
Really?
Let's put it
I would
that
think you'd be better at the NFL than college. That's interesting. Oh, wow.
The NFL's a funny mistress, I'll tell you. It's weird, dude. It's going to be a fun season.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I have regarding our bets, I have a weird strategy to put in play. I'm never going to reveal it. I just have a very strange strategy.
I have one too, and it's good. It is good. I'm very confident. Extremely confident.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So that's not really strategy. It's just more whatever. So yeah, we'll move on from there. We'll talk about that probably in the preview show.
Yeah, because then Spike will start showing up on the podcast again.
That'll be nice.
And maybe Token Tony.
Well, we won't see Token. No, he's gone. But no.
Yeah, what do you suppose? He moved closer to the studio.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And he has made it for exactly 0 podcasts.
I don't know what's up with Token. I don't know, but he's been working a lot, I guess. But that's about all I know. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
So, all right, UMass and Rutgers.
Oh yes,
Rutgers took kind of a beating on Twitter the other day. There was a video of their players dancing, or a coordinated dance. I don't know what you would say, not synchronized dancing, but anyways, point being is that it didn't go well for them in regards to the comment section, because when you are a team who goes 1-11 the year before, most people tend to believe that you should be working on things football related rather than coordinated dance moves. So they did not win the internet for that day. However, they do get UMass.
People care about weird things. It's so strange.
Well, yeah, it's not that they care. It's just when you start rifling through things and you see this, and then you go, well, Rutgers, they've been terrible since Shiano left and Ray Rice left, and these are the things they're doing in the locker room. It's most fans, again, we can go back to the end, the Andrew Luck, look at the booing in Andrew Luck. Most fans take the sport almost more serious than players sometimes. Whether you agree with that or disagree with that, or whether you believe that or not, it at least seems to, I at least seem to believe that. So It seems sometimes that fans, which is short for fanatic, are a lot more invested, especially in the professional game.
Yeah, that is true.
So anyways, well, UMass and Rutgers, we've got a line that opened up at 11. It is now 15.5. And I will say my first initial thought on this is I don't care who Rutgers is playing. How the hell are they favored by 2 touchdowns or more?
Because UMass might be one of the worst teams in FBS. That is why I missed this line. I should have seen this earlier and jumped on Rutgers. I think Rutgers will be a little bit better. I'm not really super high on Rutgers per se. They'll probably win 4 or 5 games, something like that. UMass is going to be awful. So they finally fired Mark Whipple, their previous head coach, who was under fire for a lot of reasons, some of them personal. Mm-hmm. And he left the team in a really bad state in regards to talent. and also a little bit unlucky because they had, I think, 2 or 3 NFL draft picks last year. So a couple that people are high on, but which I don't really understand. But yeah, it's a team that is going to take a couple of years at least to try to turn around and get better. Their defense, especially, I think, is atrocious. So this one actually sets up, to me, I'm not a big parlay guy, as you know, but and I hate making the kind of old fish kind of parlay where it's favored in and over. But I do think that Rutgers is significantly better than UMass, and they will get close to this number, this total themselves. So the total is 55.5 or something along those lines. To me, the score is something in the 40 to 17 range. Total's a little bit scary. I do like Rutgers better as a wager, but I just think UMass is so bad that you might want to start catching these because the lines will adjust after the first 2 or 3 games. I think we'll start seeing massive, massive lines against UMass, and this one I think is low enough here where there's some value.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt anything that you say because I know nothing about either of these two teams, so I will probably lay off of this one unless.
You can put it in your 14-team teaser. There you go.
There you go. If I think Rutgers can win the game by 2 points, I can feel good.
There you go. Perfect. We got one for you. Excellent.
There it is. I feel great about it. So now we what have we come to in this 14-point teaser? Let's recap.
Okay.
Army -7.
Okay.
South Florida plus 25.5. Rutgers -1.5. And Colorado plus 0.5. It's not a bad-looking teaser.
It's not bad.
Something will go awry, though.
Very likely, but it's not bad. Yes.
But we still have a couple more games to look at, so they could be involved as well. Purdue travels out west, to come out here and play UNR, Nevada. They are 11-point favorites. We just talked about Rondale Moore and this Purdue team. I don't know much about Nevada, but you probably do.
Well, I mean, it's Nevada lost a bunch of guys via graduation last year, but they actually had a really nice recruiting class coming in both last year and a few guys this year as well, which is quite nice to see. So
they were 8-5 last year.
They were. It was a bit of a surprise. I think we expected more of a rebuilding situation. Jay Norvell, their head coach, was a longtime assistant. I think he was assistant for almost 30 years, and he finally got his first head coaching job. He had had interviews. It wasn't like he came out of nowhere, but finally had a job, and they won 1 or 2 games his first year 2 years ago, and it was like, okay, well, maybe they'll get a little bit better, and they got significantly better. They had really strong quarterback play from Ty Ganji when he was healthy. Even when he was out for a few games, they still were in some games, which was nice. And they have a very deep running back core that's really, really good. So it's really a fascinating team, and that's another team that plays very, very fast, very wide open, and they take a lot of chances as well down the field. So they are willing to throw a lot of gadget plays at you. His playbook, from what I understand, Norvell's is extremely deep, especially at the college level. It's a fascinating team to watch, and it's a fun team to watch. It's one of those I think that everyone not only happy that obviously they've won some games, but they're fun. They're a lot of fun. On the previous regime, Brian Polian, and it was a team I was watching paint dry. But this is a good team, especially for all the people out here in Nevada that finally have something to look forward to. And Purdue, what a team! What a game to schedule for Purdue. We to give a lot of shit to a lot of the SEC teams and some of these other guys for not scheduling difficult non-conference games that may not show up on everyone's radar. But traveling to Nevada is just not easy. It's not going to look like much. Maybe at the end of the year, they win the game by 10, 11 points or something like that. But I mean, this is a tough game, and it's a game that they don't have to do. They don't have to schedule this. And they did, so good for them. Good on Purdue for doing something like this.
I think things like this make college football better.
Yeah. Oh, you're unquestionably right. Absolutely. I mean, it's a game that we never would have ever thought about, but here we have it, and we have some fun offensive players and 2 good coaches, and this would be great. I mean,
and I'm okay if you start the season with a cupcake, but usually the first 4 weeks or 3 weeks is generally non-conference. But yeah, go on a road.
Yeah,
showcase your
Agreed.
ability to other fan bases, other recruits, possibly. You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Great game. No, I'm with you 100%. So, yeah, I mean, we have.
we had a problem. I mean, Florida just scheduled a home and home with Colorado. And when that game goes off, it will have been like 34 years since they played a non-conference game outside the state of Florida.
Wow, really?
They're 24 years, 34 years, something like that.
Really? Wow.
There was a big brouhaha when they finally scheduled it, and there's still maybe a chance because Colorado goes to Florida first, and there may not be a return game because that's what happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. But if that game actually goes off, I think it's at least 24 or 25 years that they have not played a non-conference opponent outside the state of Florida.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And you can't say that it's budget issues, especially in the SEC.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that
for sure.
you don't have the budget to go to
Of course.
Boise. That's why I'm excited for Florida State to go to Boise, I believe 2021. That's going to be exciting. I'll be making that trek
Nice.
to the Blue Field to watch the Garnet and Gold. All right. So we're sitting here with Purdue and Nevada at 11 points. Any leans, 58.5? Any thoughts?
I don't have much. I wish I did. This game kind of...
Feels like Nevada might pull an upset here.
I think there's a chance they can. This is another tough one because we're seeing a lot of new offensive players, not at the running back position, but pretty much everywhere else for Nevada, so we're not really sure. There's a lot of high hopes on this team. But, yeah, I don't really know besides that. I will make a comment about Purdue's quarterback. So I thought that Sindelar should have been the starter for the majority of last year, and they went with David Blau. Or Blau or whatever. And
Bluff.
whatever his name is. And he was serviceable. He was serviceable. I think Rondale Moore probably helped significantly in that regard. But Sindelar is a real passer. And I think that Brom finally has a guy that he can really work with here fully because his offense does rely on moving the ball down the field quite a bit. And Sindelar is, if he's plays up to his potential, which is quite high, he could be, I think, a really, really fine player for this team. So, again, Nevada, if and when they do struggle, they do give up a lot of big plays. They did last year, despite winning, quite a few games themselves. So this one looks like a back and forth, close game. Again, my very light lean is Nevada getting some points here, but I don't. This is a game I'm going to stay away from and just enjoy it and enjoy the game. There's a couple of good late night games here, I think, or at least are entertaining games, and this being the first one, so I think this is a good one to enjoy and watch.
Yeah, and I mean the total actually comes into play here too because Purdue's defense is poor. So 58.5 might be a fun one. This might be a shootout, a late night shootout. Speaking of a late night shootout, we might have one in Oklahoma State and Oregon State, battle of the OSUs that are not Ohio State.
Yes.
Oklahoma State's laying 2 touchdowns on the road to a team in Oregon State that has been pretty poor the last few years. But you think something might change?
I do. I think this is a game that I'm definitely going to be wagering on. It's, to me, I bet on Oregon State a bunch of times last year. And then also, it sounds really, really bad because they won 2 games or whatever, but they actually covered I think they were 7-5 against the spread. So it's a team that keeps games relatively close, and they are, from what I understand, they believe in this, in what's going on. Jonathan Smith is a very, very well regarded and liked coach. And I think, despite the fact they have not recruited all that well still, he's still struggling recruiting-wise, and he keeps losing guys to Oregon in-state, which is really, really rough.
That's easy to do.
Yeah, I mean...
These guys get a new uniform every other day.
True. I mean, yes, it is not ideal, but until that changes, I don't think we're going to see a significant upgrade. But this team is going to stay very, very competitive. And they had a true freshman running back named Jamar Jefferson last year who stepped in because of an injury and ran for like 1,400 yards. And to me, he wasn't even probably at the peak of what he can be. And especially being a freshman and against some quality defenses, he was still good. He breaks a lot of tackles. I mean, he's a really, really good back. So the fact is that he's healthy. Obviously, first game of the year, and again, Oklahoma State, when they have struggled, it has been on their defensive line. When they've been in those rough games against Oklahoma and some of these other teams that can run the ball in their conference, they can get slaughtered on that side. So, to me, I think I like this spot a lot here. This is a weird travel game for Oklahoma State. It's just the game they're not used to playing. Good on them for again scheduling a game like this, an on-conference game. I know Oregon State's not a very good team, but they didn't really know that when they scheduled it, and this is a tough spot to do so. So I like getting the points here. I think there's an outside chance that Oregon State wins this game outright. We have a whole new offense from Oklahoma State. So Cornelius finally leaves after 4 or 5 years there, I think, with an injury year attached. They're going to go with a dual quarterback, from what I understand, right away. Hawaii transfer Drew Brown. And then true freshman Spencer Sanders, who is one of the highest-ranked recruits that in the country at quarterback, dual threat type of quarterback, and is, from what I understand, lighting it up in camp. But for some reason, they're hanging on to Drew Brown as well. We finally get my guy Chubba Hubbard to get the full start here.
Chubba.
Yeah, I love Chubba. Well, I'm not the only one. I mean, a lot of people are very high on him. So Justice Hill was the guy for a while there, but Hubbard, when he came in, when Hill was hurt for those couple of games, was better than Hill. I kept saying that. Nobody seemed to care, and Hill got his job right back. I thought Hubbard was the better player. I don't care that he was a freshman either, but love Chubba Hubbard. And a lot of new receivers as well. So they get Tylen Wallace back, but a couple other new guys. And to me, with all that transition, and we're not sure what we're going to get from the offense, I don't like using two quarterbacks in a game. I don't think Gundy necessarily wants to do it either, but this has a chance to me to kind of become a problem, especially if Oregon State can hold the ball for a while. And run really, really well. I think this game is going to be difficult. This is my favorite game on the slate for Friday. Loving the 14 points here. Wish I'd seen it earlier because I'm lazy and doing so many other things. I know it opened at like 16 or something like that, but still okay with getting the 14, and a money line is absolutely in the works as well here too.
Yeah, plus 450 if you can get it.
Yep.
So, all right. Now, I know probably some people were thinking, this game starts really soon. If you're listening on 12-Ounce Sports Radio, how have you not talked about it? And I know it's your favorite. Utah State and Wake Forest.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we did miss that one, didn't we?
I didn't miss it. I just saved it.
Oh, you're waiting it.
I just saved it for you. The
game okay.
Again, if you're listening on 12-Ounce Sports Radio, the game comes on in a few minutes. Wake Forest, 3.5.
Yes. I think we disagree on this one. It's the only one we kind of have a little bit of disagreement, I think.
I don't know if we do.
Oh, we don't? Okay.
Well, we'll find out.
All right.
It's actually up to 4 consensus. Yep. The over/under is 60.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you go.
Okay.
We may disagree on it, but I'm not sure you know where I'm at.
Okay, maybe I don't. That's right.
So go ahead.
Okay, I will start. I like Wake in the game. It's just a kind of a strong lean at this point. And the reason I do is because Wake is always undervalued and underrated in these spots. Dave Clawson has been a covering machine since he's been coaching there, 6-7 years now. They've actually covered almost 60% of games. If you just 6 years ago just started betting on Wake Forest and doing nothing else, you'd be winning at a 58.5% clip, which is pretty awesome, and you'd be profitable. And that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's always something to note. Again, I know that doesn't all matter for this game per se. Why I like this one is Utah State is going to be in a whole new state of affairs here. So they have rehired Gary Anderson from many years ago. Gary went from Utah State after having a couple of really big winning seasons to Wisconsin, and then to Oregon State, and then I think he was off for a year, and now he got rehired here from Utah State after their coach went to Texas Tech in the offseason. So the offense will change a little. It will go back to more of a run-heavy scheme and a clock kind of bearing scheme, which I think actually doesn't bode well for the players they have currently on the roster. Jordan Love, the quarterback, is a phenomenal thrower of the ball. He was incredibly accurate. He was the most accurate quarterback in the Mountain West last year. That includes some guys in the NFL like Brett Rippon. So that's kind of a surprising stat there. And also, Gerald Bright, the running back, is just to me, doesn't fit the scheme to be able to run the ball 20 to 25 times. And I don't see anybody else they have on the depth chart that is going to be, really high quality. I think there's going to be a year of transition here with Utah State. So while they have they have a fine defense as well, and I'm not saying that they're going to lose a bunch of games. No, they're going to be in a lot of games. They'll probably still win 6 or 7 or whatever the case is. I just don't think it's going to be that Utah State team we've seen the last couple of years where they can be dominant in certain games. And at Wake Forest, you have to be on your game. Wake Forest makes very few mistakes. They've been first in not taking penalties in the ACC the last 2 straight years. It's that type of team that you have to, you're up against. And they also have a quarterback that finally got the nod, Jamie Newman, who I thought was amazing last year when he came and filled in. Dual threat, great as a runner for Wake Forest. And I think Wake Forest could win this game 10, 12, 14 points here. So I like Wake.
We're on the same side.
Oh, I thought you were going to take Utah State. I know you're a Utah State guy.
I like Utah State, and I think Jordan Love is actually going to come onto the stage here. I'm actually really interested in the over of 60 points.
It looks high, doesn't it? It kind of feels weirdly high. But
it looks high, but it's coming down a little bit. I feel like, 4 points. I feel like this is like a 35-31 kind of battle. I feel like last man standing. I understand what you're saying with, maybe winning by double digits, which is totally plausible as well. I think Utah State, the last time they were here 2 years ago, they got their doors blown in 46-10. Love was a freshman, started that game, did not do very well.
Oh, I remember that game.
Potential revenge, maybe. Also a better quarterback at this point than he was 2 years ago as well. The question really, when you talk about Gary Anderson and the transition, with the players he has in place, do you really wonder if he might actually try to stick a square peg in a round hole or just kind of let everything go?
Yes. For knowing Gary as we have, I think he's a square peg, round hole guy.
Well, that may not bode well for a Utah State.
That's my guess. I don't know, per se. He's a fine defensive coach, too, so I'm not like that's where he comes from. He comes from that side of the ball. So,
right.
Again, I don't doubt their defense, but I think their defense is going to play well against, non-major competition. And Wake Forest, they may not be a big name on the big national stage, but they are major competition. It is an ACC team,
but they're also a team that allowed, and again, you have Clemson and other teams in that, but they allowed 34 points a game last year.
Oh, yeah.
So again, unless something drastically changed, say you knock off 4 points, you're still looking at 30 points a game. I think Utah State can hang with them, but I agree. I think Wake Forest will probably win this game.
Yeah.
So that's why I probably will look more towards taking this down 14 points to 46 and take the over.
Fair enough.
That might complete a second 14-point season.
Oh, we get 2 of them.
Who knows?
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, that might be my bread and butter this year, or even just the 10. I don't know. The game's sharp. The book is sharp. And I know that doesn't really bode well for a sports betting show, but
yeah, right. Exude confidence.
You're the brain. I'm the fun. You're the brain. I'm the fun. That's
okay. We'll go with that.
That's the thought process I'm taking into this year.
Fair enough. I can work with not being fun.
I'm not saying you're not fun. I'm just saying I'm the. Hey, if you're feeling like lighting money on fire,
do it.
Let's take 2 touchdowns and move this line.
And I'll be really serious and be like, well, I don't know about that, Aaron. This is something like they're like, no, it's 14 points. Who cares?
Yeah, who gives a fuck? I can always make more money at my job. All right, so that wraps up Friday's slate of bettable games. Again, what is your... And again, you don't want to use the tout logic, but what is your 5-star pick out of all of this? I know you're probably highest on the Rutgers game, it seems.
Yes. It's a tie between Rutgers and Oregon State. That would probably be one of those. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say that I have one pick necessarily, above the other. I think that there's the one thing the takeaway here is this for this late game is Oklahoma State is not going to be that same powerhouse destructive offense I think that we've seen at least right away, and Oregon State is not going to be the absolute dumpster fire that we're also used to seeing. So we have 2 teams going in slightly opposite directions, And Oklahoma State, traveling to Oregon State is weird and strange, and the game it doesn't. You do not want to be laying double-digit points in that game. You do not want to be doing it.
It does seem strange.
It's just
traveling west, laying double digits.
It's just
recipe for
uncomfortable. Yeah, very uncomfortable. They have a bad defense still. They're going to continue to have a bad defense, and a bad defense against Oregon State. They're going to give up points, and they're not going to have the ball for a ton of time either. Oregon State is no joke. Their offensive line, their running back are the best things about this team, and that is a disaster for Oklahoma State. So while they may put up 40 points themselves and win the game by 7 or 10 or whatever the case is, I'm not saying they won't. I want to take the 14 on Oregon State. So that would be, if I had to take a 5-star pick, that would be the one. I like Rutgers a lot as well. I think that there's some value in Wake Forest possibly too. So if we want to come up with, I'll come up with my own little parlay if you want to do that, just for some fun's sake. We'll money line.
Not too much fun. You're not the fun guy.
I'm not the fun guy, but we'll do one just to start out our first show here. We'll do Oregon State plus 450. Rutgers minus 15, and then Wake Forest laying 3.5. And there's a 3-team parlay that'll pay probably in the 12-1 range or something like that would be my guess. So
it'd be a nice payday for the start of the football season.
Mm-hmm. So there you go.
All right, well that's going to wrap it up on the Friday night slate. We're obviously going to be back on Saturday with our picks, so stay tuned. Hopefully Friday goes well for you. And good luck to everybody. I want to thank the sponsors, 12 Ounce Sports Radio. And obviously I want to thank Tony Johnson here. Unless things go horribly wrong, and in which case, blame it all on him. You should have taken the teasers.
Tail us or fade us.
Yep, the choice is yours. So good luck in your bets, and we will catch you on the next one.